Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone is Representative Jeb Hensarling, Republican from Texas, and the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. And Representative Hensarling, welcome back to Newsmax TV.
Thanks for the invitation.
Well, I understand that House Republicans are considering making another attempt to pass 3 emergency funding bills after each failed to get the required 2/3 vote Tuesday. Can you update us on what's going on with this and what will be the House Republicans' next move?
Well, I never continue. The president never ceases to amaze me and astound me and disappoint me. I was at least pleased that he decided not to use our troops as pawns in his shutdown game. So we sent a bill over there, and he signed to ensure that throughout any government slowdown, shutdown, that the troops would be paid. Well, we all know that veterans are having challenges in getting their claims processed, so the House came up with a bill to ensure that veterans are not impacted by the sequester, and the White House issued a veto threat. And because of that, we had this on what is known as the suspension calendar, which means in Congress's terms, it's typically a non-controversial item that has to pass with 2/3 vote. Well, once the president issued his veto threat, most of the Democrats voted against it. And so we all know now of the story of 20-year-olds who had to charge Japanese barricades in order to save America as 90-year-olds. Now they're going to be forced to charge American barricades just to be recognized for their service. This is just absolutely inexcusable, untenable. We offered a bill to keep the national parks open. The United States House, now if you listen to the national news this morning, you probably wouldn't have heard a word of it. But yesterday, the House put on the floor a bill to keep the national parks open. The president issued a veto threat. The radical liberal elements of the Democrat Party joined him. It did not pass on the 2/3 vote that it needed, so it's going what we call off the suspension calendar onto what we call the rule calendar, to where it only needs a majority vote. It will be brought back today. The House Republicans are standing by their veterans, standing by the American people who want their monuments open.
Representative Speaker Boehner yesterday said that the Democrats have slammed the door on reopening the government by refusing to engage in bipartisan talks. Can you share with us whether there have been any breakthroughs here or signs that President Obama or the Democrats are ready to come to the table?
Well, it's fascinating to me, again, that the Democrats who have accused our party of being the ones who are rigid and ideological, Republicans have now put 1 offer on the table, 2 offers on the table, 3 offers on the table, 4 offers on the table. We're still prepared to negotiate, but we're through negotiating with ourselves. The President of the United States has previously indicated he'll negotiate with Iranians, he'll negotiate with Syrians, he'll negotiate with Russians. Apparently he refuses to negotiate with Americans if they happen to be Republicans. Now, again, I never lose hope. I am now told that literally as of about 10 minutes ago, a news report came out that the president is finally willing to speak to the Speaker of the House. Again, I can't confirm that report. I would be hopeful that the president would do this. And again, House Republicans don't believe that the president's health care plan is good for families' health. We don't think it's good for the economy. Clearly, it is having an incredibly failed rollout. But right now, the last offer we made was, listen, Mr. President and Democrats, if you're going to impose Obamacare on the nation, at least do it equally. Do it fairly. There's no reason that you should allow big labor unions and allow big companies to get a 1-year reprieve if you're not going to do the same for hard-working Americans. Right. And also, Mr. President, we in Congress, House Republicans, we don't want this illegal special deal that you give us an advantage in Obamacare if others don't. So all we're asking at this point, if Obamacare is going to be imposed on Americans, it ought to be imposed equally. That's what we're asking, and the more that Americans see I think the president's position is going to be untenable.
Representative, what are the scenarios that you're looking at for ending this shutdown impasse? And could ultimately spending bill negotiations be combined with debt limit negotiations?
Well, there very well could be. And, again, what House Republicans are trying to do is, one, keep the government open. Number two, ensure that Obamacare is enforced equally across our land if it's going to be the law of the land. We are never going to allow there to be default on our bonds, our sovereign debt. But let me tell you, there's a very big difference between a bond and funding the next IRS Star Trek video. These are not equal. And so we have got to grow this economy. We've got to reduce the red tape burden on small businesses and working families, and we got to get America on the road to financial solvency and off the road to bankruptcy. And bottom line is, I know the president says he used to teach constitutional law. I find it a little hard to believe, but the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power of the purse. Now, the president may have read the power of the rubber stamp, but it doesn't say rubber stamp. It says all monies will be appropriated by Congress. And so we're ready to negotiate. We've been ready to negotiate, but we're through negotiating with ourselves in trying to ensure that Obamacare is applied equally, that members of Congress don't get any kind of sweetheart deals, and that we make real reforms in our programs before it's too late. So we don't bankrupt our country, we don't bankrupt our children.
Representative, new polls show that Republicans, though, are not winning on the strategy or substance of this issue. In fact, according to Quinnipiac, 72% of Americans oppose and 22% support shutting down the government to stop implementation of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. Was the continuing resolution the right tool or vehicle with which to delay implementation of Obamacare, or should the party have waited perhaps till debt ceiling negotiations instead?
Well, we're never going to quit fighting this. I mean, the left has spent, frankly, a couple of generations fighting for some version of a one-payer, collectivized, socialized health care system. Do people really think that Republicans are going to give up after a couple of years for trying to get patient-centered health care? Now, having said that, we understand the reality. We have to fight, but the truth is we know since 90% plus of Obamacare is what is known as mandatory or automatic spending, the only way we can ultimately repeal Obamacare is with Obama's signature, but at the same time, we are going to fight. But today, all we're asking for right now, all we're asking for is that members of Congress don't get a better deal than hardworking Americans, and that hardworking Americans don't get a worse deal than their bosses. And I think that any poll will show 100% to 0 that the American people don't want members of Congress getting some kind of sweetheart deal. I think polls will show that the American people want their leaders to talk to each other and negotiate, something that so far the president has refused to do. And I think when the American people know it's Republicans that are trying to make sure that 90-year-olds who helped save our country and led to VE and VJ Day, that we're the ones trying to open the monuments, and it's the president putting up barricades to 90-year-old heroes to prevent them from seeing the World War II memorial. I mean, to use them as pawns in this fight, frankly, is just disgusting.
Last question for you, Representative Hensarling. Lawmakers from both parties say that this shutdown could last for weeks. How long do you see this playing out for? And if it does last longer than a week, what are the ramifications?
I don't know. All I know is that we are trying to fight for economic growth, for equality under the law in Obamacare, and for reforms that ensure that we are not the first generation in America's history to leave the next generation with so much debt that they have a lower standard of living and that they lose their freedoms and their opportunities. And we have to fight for that. We will negotiate with the president in good faith, but we will not rubber stamp his policies. We will not rubber stamp his policies that are harming economic growth, leaving millions unemployed and underemployed, losing control of their health care, and racking up more debt in 4 years than our nation's 200 years. We will not rubber stamp that. We will not remain silent. And so we will continue to fight to keep the government open, but also to promote these other ideals that we know the American people care about.
All right, Representative Jeb Hensarling, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.